app, ihanda muna ang isang valid ID. Una, install mo ang Kaya app sa iyong mobile device. Hanapin ito sa Google Play Store kung Android o sa App Store kung iOS. Buksan ang app. Pindutin ang Open Link Account button. Tapos, pindutin ang Open Kaya Savings Account. I-fill up ang form na ibibigay sa iyo ng app. Tiyakin na tama ang lahat na detalye na iyong ibibigay. Kapag tapos ka na sa sign up, maghintay ng text mula sa iyong co-op branch. Ito ay ang confirmation na na-approve na ang iyong Kaya account. Dito mo din makikita ang iyong Kaya user ID. Ngayon, kailangan mo nang i-activate ang iyong account bago gamitin ang app at ang services ng Kaya. Sa Kaya app, pindutin ang Activate Mobile Service. Ilagay ang iyong user ID at mobile phone number at pindutin ang Activate. Makakatanggap ka ng text mula sa Kaya. Dito mo makikita ang iyong one-time password o OTP na kailangan mong ilagay sa Kaya app para ma-activate ang iyong account. Ilagay ang iyong OTP at pindutin ang Activate. Congrats! Meron ka ng Kaya account. Pwede mo nang gamitin ang iyong Kaya mobile app. Naubusan ka ba ng load? Hindi makatext o makatawag? Huwag mag-alala. Pwede nang magpa-load gamit ang iyong Kaya app. Buksan ang iyong Kaya app. Sa baba ng screen, pindutin ang plus sign button. Sa listahan, pindutin ang Mobile Reload. Piliin ang source account kung saan kukuha ng bayad. Piliin ang telco name o ang pangalan ng iyong service provider at ang telco description. Ilagay ang iyong mobile number o kahit anong number na gusto mong ipaload. Ilagay ang amount na ilo-load sa iyong mobile. Pagtapos na lahat, pindutin ang next button. Ang susunod na screen ay ang resibo ng iyong transaction. Ngayon, makakatanggap ka ng text mula sa Kaya bilang confirmation na successful ang iyong transaction. Ito ay magsisilbing resibo o proof ng iyong transaction. Ang bilis! Mobile reload, madali lang sa Kaya. Kailangan mo bang magpadala ng pera? Pwedeng-pwede sa Kaya app. Tara, turuan kita. Buksan ang iyong Kaya app. Sa pagbukas, makikita mo ang Kaya dashboard. Pindutin ang Transfers button. Mula dito, pindutin ang Transfer to Other Accounts. Sa form na makikita mo, piliin mo ang account kung saan kukuha ng pera na ita-transfer. Tapos, piliin ang account na papadalhan ng pera at ilagay ang mobile number. Ilagay ang amount ng pera na ipapadala at pindutin ang transfer sa ibaba ng iyong screen. Ngayon, makakatanggap ka ng text mula sa Kaya bilang confirmation na successful ang iyong transaction. Ito ay magsisilbing resibo o proof ng iyong transaction. Tatanggap din ang receiver ng fund transfer ng text galing sa Kaya. Ayun, madali lang, di ba? Fund transfer, pwede na sa Kaya. Kailangan mo bang magbayad ng bills? Pwede yan sa Kaya. Hindi mo na kailangang lumabas at pumila ng matagal. Sa Kaya app, madali nang magbayad ng bills gamit ang iyong mobile device. Buksan ang iyong Kaya app. Sa baba ng screen, pindutin ang plus sign button. Sa listahan, piliin ang bills payments. Tapos pindutin ang other billers. Piliin ang source account kung saan kukuha ng bayad. Piliin kung aling biller ang iyong babayaran o kung hindi pa nakalista, ilagay ang details ng biller sa iyong device. Ilagay ang amount ng babayaran at description ng iyong transaction. Pindutin ang next. Ang susunod na screen ay ang detalye ng iyong transaction. Kapag may mali, pindutin ang cancel para bumalik. Kung sigurado na sa lahat ng impormasyon, pindutin ang confirm. Tatanungin ka ng Kaya app kung gusto mo ng resibo na ipapadala sa iyong email. Pindutin ang yes o no. Ayan, makakatanggap ka ng text mula sa Kaya bilang confirmation na successful ang iyong transaction. Ito ay magsisilbing resibo o proof ng iyong transaction. Ipapakita din sa iyo ng Kaya app ang resibo ng iyong bills payment. Di ba ang dali lang? Bills payment, kayang-kaya sa Kaya.
Wondering on how to become a member of the NHCO Stabilization Fund System? It all starts with the board resolution indicating that your board approves your membership to Stabilization Fund System. Then signing of the Stabilization Fund Agreement takes place. Once done, you just have to pay minimal membership fee of 2,000 pesos for your initial placement deposit. It depends on your cooperative's asset size. Lastly, the good news is that inspection fee is covered by your CETF remittances. Protect your cooperative and be part of the NHCO Stabilization Fund System. When you hear of the Stabilization Fund System, what comes to your mind? For some people, their minds automatically focus on the fund, giving less emphasis on the system. But, really, what is the Stabilization Fund System? The Stabilization Fund is not just a fund. It is system because it has a component of supervision and monitoring which aims to establish cooperative protection scheme. In Stabilization Fund, we gather financial data, analyze trends, and provide recommendations so our member cooperatives can better position themselves in improving and recovering from the impacts of COVID-19. We have developed a process to provide virtual risk-based evaluation and inspection through the adaptation of various online platforms. Being a member of the NHCO Stabilization Fund, we first help in the identification of priority risk areas that need to be addressed. Second is we provide recommendations on priority action plans with the objective of improving cooperatives' operations. We also supervise and monitor your compliance to ensure your sustainability. Once you become a member of the Stabilization Fund, you will be prepared for the implementation of RA 11364. Lastly, is monitoring of the negative effects of COVID-19 on your organization. Because we believe that deposit insurance can provide overall stability to the cooperative. Become a member of the NHCO Stabilization Fund.
The strength of your name unites our common dream with honor and courage to stand by your side.
To protect you through endless time, working together, bringing us near.
Still, here we are with so much life ahead. Not too young to know, not too old to grow. When all is fair,
We'll be there just for you,
you're all that I need.
to make our dreams come true. And now in harmony we sing, let it echo to everywhere it rings. To everyone, this is our song. The vision we share is where we belong. One dream, one life, one kind of people, one world, one nation, make us all.
As we gather forces through this day once more, we'll never bow down to reasons that keep us apart.
For we know the storm will pass, bringing us closer more than before.
So come
Take my
this world that we borrow to share and to lead us in this cause we're fighting for. Here in our hands
lies the destiny to be
a rainbow to find in this journey that we follow. Karoon ang tipong pagtanan, kung di palanong nato sa uban. Kini ang atong awit, tambong ng yunan, alam sa tanan. Hintay nga rudang magkanta, kaya pangit tayo sa nga lubungan. Daytoy baruna kanta, di pa mamanagnek, panagkakaisa. Ngayon ay ating awitin, at ipabot sa sanlibutan. Dahil ito ang kanta natin, para sa ating pagkakaisa. And now in harmony we sing, let it echo to everywhere we praise. To everyone, this is our song. The vision we share is where we belong. One dream, one life, one kind of people, one world, one nation. Let
Welcome to Co-op Lounge. Let us talk about our cooperative's welfare. For today's topic, a discussion on how we can safeguard our cooperative members' money and ensure that cooperatives are raising the bar to be resilient and relevant. Let us join Ms. Sharon Marie D. of NATCO's Stabilization Fund and Ms. Mary Rose Gobb from NATCO's Knowledge Resource Center.
Hello, good morning everyone. Good morning partner. Kumusta ka?
Morning, partner. Good morning. It's good to see you again, although virtual. It has been how many years na since we last saw each other? I guess more than 2 years.
Yes. And for our participants who are joining us today, salamat sa pagsama nyo sa amin. We are privileged that we have our partner here, Ms. Sharon Marie D., the head of Stabilization Fund. Okay, as to date, only NATCO have this kind of service for our cooperatives. They maintain or they hold the database of all the cooperative members of NATCO, and they just don't handle the data. They also do some analytics to understand the welfare of the cooperatives. I hope you are in good health, partner, no? And
Yes, I am.
kumusta naman?
Although siguro because of the pandemic, parang nagkaroon ako ng yung agoraphobia na sinasabi nila, the fear of going outside when you are in your comfort zone, you're staying in the house for 2 years. Although nakakamiss din that you have to go out and to travel because 'di ba, our line of work really is traveling. And then biglang when pandemic came, biglang napahinto tayo at we were really forced to just stay at home and to have this kind of activities wherein we do work virtually. Yeah.
Yes, oo. Dati kasi face-to-face nakukumusta natin yung mga cooperatives natin. Kumusta na kaya ang mga co-ops natin ngayon? Kayo, partner, you do some research, no? Kinukumusta niyo rin yung mga cooperatives natin even online. So, can you give
Yes.
us insights? Kumusta sila ngayon right now? Siguro operations-wise or financial-wise?
Oo. Kasi tayo in NATCO, we transitioned ourselves virtually. Diba? Nung kasagsagan ng pandemic in 2020. That was also the time when we introduced yung virtual kamustahan to those members ni NATCO who are on board the Stabilization Fund System. Our intention really of the virtual kamustahan was just to ask them how they were. And the feedback was very good kasi parang naramdaman nila that the Federation cared about them. And that was also the time when we collected a lot of data. As you have mentioned kanina, we have a lot of data from the co-ops. We do not only collect the audited financial statements, but starting in 2020, we started analyzing the impact of COVID. Kaya naghihingi kami sa mga co-ops ng mga interim data. It is very helpful. We do not say that it's yung analysis paralysis because we are doing really data analytics. And out of that data analytics, we were able to also recommend some regulatory relief to CDA. Nung kinamusta namin sila, parang they thought na sila lang yung nakaranas ng challenges. Number one, in profitability. Most of our co-ops really were highly challenged in terms of how they were doing. And basing on our data, if we compare their 2020 performance and then their 2019, 76% of those co-ops who shared us with their data experienced lesser profit compared to the pre-pandemic time. However, there were also remarkable cooperatives na mas nag-income pa sila in 2020. It's also our realization partner when we had our data analytics that each region have different type of stories. Kasi hindi naman pare-pareho lahat tayo ng quarantine status in 2020 eh. Like for us, I am here in Cagayan de Oro. It was a prolonged GCQ for us. But for NCR, I think prolonged sa inyo ang MECQ and ECQ. Kaya magkaiba ang dynamics. And it will also reflect on the performance, financial performance of the co-ops. I guess that's why it explains that there were really some cooperatives na nag-stand out then, even during the pandemic. We also noted in our data analytics that there was an 8% increase of co-ops who experienced net losses. Pre-pandemic time, nag-net loss na sila. Nadagdagan ang co-ops na yon that they also experienced net losses in 2020. The worst times were in April 2020. Kasi yun yung time na yung net surplus talaga was 58% drop. If we compare it with their December 2019. And consolidated wise, on a monthly basis, that was the month where most of the co-ops experienced net losses. A lot of our co-ops kasi nagsarado ng branches. They have to keep up with ano yung nangyayari. Sila din parang nagre-reflect din, anong nangyari, anong gagawin natin. So, number one, profitability talaga ang naka-apekto sa kanila. Number two is on delinquency. Kasi related sila eh. Pag tumaas ang delinquency mo, naturally, it will also reflect sa iyong bottom line. Kaya nagkaroon sila ng net loss. April 2020 was the worst. There was a 118% increase in terms of volume in the delinquent portfolio. And parang the concentration ng delinquency is nasa age ng less than 1 month to less than 1 year. That's 108% increase in that type of category. But there were also mga 42% increase in the more than 1 year delinquent portfolio. Doon din natin nakikita na parang naapektuhan din yung hindi nakapagbayad pre-pandemic time, how much more that they were not able to pay during the pandemic. So aside from profitability and delinquency, on the lighter side naman, parang unexpectedly, the liquidity of our sector increased. Siguro mga average of 12% that there were really increases in liquidity. Our expectations talaga, partner, during that time is baka mag-massive withdrawal. Kasi di ba, the fear of our members, kung nagsara ang co-op namin, kailangan kong may pondo ng pera sa bahay. Pero hindi nangyari yon. Basing on our data, talagang there were continuous increase in terms of deposits. Kaya din tumaas ang liquidity level ng co-ops. Mas mahirap kasi kung wala kang income at wala ka pang pera. Napakahirap nun. But during the time of the pandemic, because of the data that we have, it was a realization pala that co-op members had more than enough money. Kasi during that time, needs lang talaga ang pinagkakagastuhan mo, gastusan mo eh. Pre-pandemic time, di ba, marami tayong travels and all, mga leisure. But during the pandemic time, they were really very conscious already. Our members were very conscious that they only have to spend for their basic needs. Food, medicine. So yun lang. And even yung mga air purifiers, yung mga ganun, nag-e-invest ni sila sa mga ganun because health was really the primary priority in 2020. Kaya nga sabi nga ni the late Professor Morato that he has no doubt that cooperatives are really resilient kasi we have strong balance sheets. We have built that over the years, pre-pandemic time. The challenge then during the 2020 for us was how are we going to be relevant to our members? Ma-feel ba ng members natin that we were there for them during the time of the pandemic? Kaya nung virtual kamustahan, lumabas yun. And they felt naman sa mga co-ops natin na hindi pala sila nag-iisa, na hindi lang pala sila ang nagka-problema na exponential increase yung delinquency nila, na wala silang kita. It's because it was really eminent that it's not only the cooperative sector that was really affected of the pandemic, but it was the entire sector, even the Philippine banking system were really highly affected. So kung sitwasyon man, partner, kung kamusta yung co-ops natin during the pandemic time, really there were three factors: decrease in profitability, increase in delinquency, but on the other side, we were really awash with cash. And it's one way or another a good problem na din. Yeah.
Nakakatuwa, no? From what you shared, partner, it seems that the members are financially literate na.
Literate, yes. Oo, parang nagbunga yung financial education that our co-ops were teaching them before. Diba? Because really, co-ops have their financial education programs for their members. Parang doon natin din nakikita yung impact niya during the pandemic time kasi natututo na talaga yung members to be conscious and where they're going to spend their money. Oo.
Nakakatuwa. But of course, during those times, it's risky for the co-ops, lalo na maraming mga members who are losing their jobs. So, what are the common risks by usual partner na na-encounter ng mga co-ops natin as you go through the kamustahan, the virtual kamustahan?
During the virtual kamustahan, we've also noted na each of the co-ops have different ways of coping up. There were really co-ops talaga na nung in-impose yung Bayanihan Act 1 and 2, di ba yung mag-moratorium in terms of payment of their loans, there were really some co-ops who were very conscious of their data. Kasi just like one co-op, a billionaire co-op, they were very data-driven. Kasi tiningnan nila of their member borrowers. Ilan ba dyan ang hindi naman affected yung capacity to pay nila during the pandemic? Parang kinategorize nila yung mga borrowers nila. If the capacity to pay of that member borrower was not affected really, parang highly affected, severely affected, or just moderately affected. And out of those categories, kasi ang profile ng borrowers ng co-op na yon, I think 40% of which are salary loaners. So even the time of the pandemic kasi, sa area na yon, wala kasi masyadong nag-layoff. Kumbaga, there were still, members were still getting their salaries. Kaya doon nakita nila na, okay, at chunk pala of their member borrowers, their capacity to pay, hindi naman affected. Kaya patuloy pa din yung education nila for their members that you have to pay. If you have the money now, you pay. Kasi in the long run, babayaran mo rin naman eh. It's just a matter of moratorium lang naman. pero yung interest nun, babayaran mo pa rin. So right now, if you have such money, then might as well pay it rather than paying it on a later date. So yun ang ginawa ng ibang co-ops. They were really data-driven in terms of their decisions and changing their policies, even to the point of changing their policies. At the same time, their information dissemination was also accelerated with the use of social media, that they need to explain to their members on the moratorium, on yung hindi pala siya na totally waive yung interest. So those are the things then na they were able to manage the risk in terms of collection. Kaya nung nag-increase ang delinquency nung April, it was also notable that there were certain decreases in the coming months because of that factor, that they were able to classify their member borrowers according to their capacity to pay or the impact of the COVID-19. Ang naging common risk then was na nakita namin when we also transitioned ourselves. Kasi dati we do face-to-face risk-based evaluation. Noong 2020, we were really forced to do audit virtually. So sabi namin, kaya naman pala. And doon din namin nakita na yung risk radar ng co-ops pre-pandemic time, nagbago nung pandemic time. Kasi pre-pandemic time, a lot of the risk indicators was on credit, nung increasing ang delinquency. But nung pandemic time, nagbago, nag-shift siya. Doon namin nakita mababa ang kanilang compliance in terms of the Data Privacy Act, yung RA 10173. Because we know that during this time, disinformation and data breaches are really parang, dumadami sila ng mga kaso na ganun. So yung compliance level ng co-ops on Data Privacy Act, hindi ganun ang kanilang pagtugon. The other one is yung kasi there is a proper disposal of health declaration forms. When a member goes to the co-op, they need to fill out, di ba, yung health declaration form.
Yes.
Pero meron yan siyang kasing talagang proper way of disposing it. Kasi there are sensitive information in the health declaration form. Yun din na-observe namin na hindi masyadong na-comply ng mga co-ops yung requirement on the proper disposal of health declaration form. Common din yung sa core banking system, that they're using their core banking system for quite some time. However, hindi pala sila nakapag-register sa BIR. Yung kukuha ka kasi ng authority to use computerized accounting software if you have a core banking system. Yun ang medyo madami-dami na hindi nakapag-comply doon. So in terms of risk and compliance, doon ang naging common. The second risk is on finance. It's because, as mentioned, nag-increase kasi ang liquidity level ng mga co-ops. Even their investments increased kasi dumami yung pera. It just so happened that they were not able to establish a very good fund management system pre-pandemic time. Kaya medyo hindi nila alam kung paano i-balance yung pag-source out mo ng fund and then the uses and how to use it. The third risk would be on the strategic. Nakita namin halos lahat ng co-ops is hindi agad nakapag-realign ng kanilang strategic plan. Kasi nung plano natin nung pre-pandemic time, hindi na kasi siya mag-a-apply nung dumating si COVID. Lahat kasi tayo parang nabigla. Hindi naman natin in-expect that pandemic will really hit in our generation. Di ba, pag nagsaswot analysis tayo, common threats natin is yung calamities, but never nating yung pandemic. Tsaka tayong lahat parang, ano gagawin natin? And it was not even part of our business continuity plan. Isa pa yon sa institutional risk. Co-ops have business continuity plan, but they did not include yung pandemic na part. The sad part also was the plan was just a plan. It was not being rolled out. It was not implemented. So yun yung nakita naming common risk. The compliance, strategic risk in terms of their, yung strategy nila ngayon when pandemic came, the fund management, the risk of handling their funds, and then pang-apat yung rolling out their business continuity program, particularly because of the pandemic.
Okay. So, alam mo tong mga problems na na-mention mo, these challenges encountered by the cooperatives, it's good to know and acknowledge by the co-ops, di ba? Kasi if they don't really know on how to act on these problems, isa pa nga is yung consciousness mismo. If you're not conscious of the real root of your problems, that's really is a big problem. Talagang hindi mo
Correct.
problem mo.
Oo.
Diba? But now, I think, as you've mentioned, yung risk radar, tumaas yung risk radar ng ating mga co-ops. They became more conscious. They became more, focused on how they can keep the co-ops afloat. And isa na rin is at least naramdaman ng mga co-ops natin how the members felt, how the co-ops are actually concerned. Siguro nakatulong din yung mga assistance provided by the co-ops to our members. Kaya yung mga members natin really stayed with the cooperatives and the practice
partner.
and principles of cooperativism. Yes.
Kasi during our virtual kamustahan, tinanong kasi namin sila ano yung mga initiatives na ginawa nila for their members. Even if our own cooperative, yung sa management team, nahirapan silang mag-adjust in the processes. But still, they thought of ways on how they can be helpful to their members. May mga co-ops tayo na tumulong sa mga frontliners. Yung mga co-ops natin na may resort. Kasi resort talaga ang affected na industry din eh. Wala namang turista. So yung business ng co-op yun, you will expect it to be losing talaga. Pero they've made use of it on manner wherein, kasi may time na na-discriminate yung frontliners, di ba? Yung bang hindi papasakay or pag nagre-renta yung nurse sa isang unit, parang nagre-reklamo yung ibang residents din. So they made use of that resort na doon nila pinastay yung mga frontliners. Either it's either their member or even if it's not their member. So aside from doon yung pamimigay ng mga ayuda din, even if they know that they are challenged in terms of profitability, but because we have that certain fund for our members' benefit, that they were also able to use it. And they even extended it to the community. Kaya din nagulat din kami na may mga co-ops partner na kahit pandemic, nag-increase ang kanilang members. Kasi wala naman tayong PMES na face-to-face eh. Yung ibang co-ops din, matagal din sila nakapag-adapt na pwede palang virtual na PMES. But because of the help that our cooperatives extended not just to their members but to the community. Kaya parang naging word of mouth siya. Na gusto na rin nilang ma-part doon sa co-op na yun. Kasi at this time, they needed somebody na makapitan nila kung medyo mabagal ang responde ng gobyerno. But the co-op was there to help them. And it was really something. And when we say parang nag-shine din naman tayo cooperatives during the pandemic time. We were challenged on the financial performance, but on the other hand, because di ba we are social entrepreneurs. Yung social yung social side natin is naipakita pa rin natin na kahit kami ay experiencing some difficulties, but we are still here able to extend help to our members or even to the community.
Yes, I agree, partner. So that increased the credibility of the cooperatives as a financial institution for our members. But you've mentioned na rin some tips on how the co-op can actually rise above these challenges. But what can you advise to some co-ops who are still struggling right now? How can they move forward and rise above these challenges?
Number one is they need to start already thinking about digitalization. They need to start their digital transformation. Kasi talaga, the pandemic made us realize the importance of being very agile with our environment. And digital transactions really accelerated during the pandemic. So we need to start thinking. We need to start having our digitalization roadmap. there are a lot of dimensions when we say we go into digital transformation. I think number one of which will be the digital leadership. It was really come from the leaders. It's more of having a new leadership culture, that we do away with the conventional way of doing things, but now we adapt into something new. And when we say digital leadership, it would also involve that if I am one of the board of directors, I should be very open to that. That I will also be the one to respond to that. Pag sinabing may payment platform tayo, gagamitin ko talaga. Because that's digital leadership. The other one is, nabanggit ko kanina yung strategic risk. Siguro yung digital strategy. We have to be very proactive. Naging reactive kasi tayo no si pandemic, parang ang naging solution natin, nag-react lang tayo dun dahil sa pandemic. But if we start being very proactive with our decisions and trying to reflect na din with the situation that we have right now, will we still be able to fulfill our vision? Kasi we need to realign mga certain mga measurements or even our processes. We need to realign them. And very important then siguro the third one is the digital member relationship. They say talaga if we high tech, low touch, but I guess it's still a high touch. Kasi mas more pwede kang makipag-usap virtually. And siguro a lot of Filipinos already have Facebook accounts. So even dyan, di ba, we chat our members, we form certain groups, we form forums, and mas mabilis siya, mas mabilis and mas efficient. But we need to build that relationship. It's also very fast in terms when we respond to their comments, when we respond to their kasi nagko-comment sila, we have to be very also sensitive as well as timely doon sa pag-respond kung ano yung mga feedback nila. The faster that we respond to their feedback, I guess it's more sa kanila yung response time natin would really make a mark of saying that we are really after of their welfare. The other one is yung digital products. How do we now market our products virtually or online, digitally? Adapting then mga digital solutions like yung digital processes. Yung even from membership. Pag nag-PMES, pwedeng hindi na face-to-face, but pwedeng virtual PMES. Sa loans, pwedeng we can start off with few loans wherein our members can already apply via online. And then the approvals also internal process can be done virtually or online. Filling out yung mga forms online na din. So that's part again of the digitalization journey. Internal process much more on the social collaborations. Like for example, for us in NAPCO, di ba ang tagal nang inintroduce ng IT natin yung G Suites pang tawag nun Mga siguro mga 2017, 2018, G Suites ang tawag, tapos nag-evolve na siya na Google Workspace. Nung pandemic lang natin talagang na-maximize yung paggamit natin ng Google Sheets, Google Slides, then we are able to collaborate parang real time. So that's also one of the tools to improve the internal business process of our cooperatives, is also to accelerate yung internal information collaboration. And then yung digital mindset din, not only on the part of the board of directors and the employees, but how are we going to also set some digital literacy and digital education to our members. Kasi pag nag-transform tayo ng digital products, digital processes, our members should be able to understand and should be able na makasabay din. Pag nag-segment kasi tayo ng ating members ngayon, baka sa ngayon nagbago. Kung madami doon ang nasa silent generation, baka ngayon mas madami na ang Gen X or yung mga millennials din. So this group of members kasi are more on the technology side. So dapat din nating bigyan ng pansin, particularly for our education committee on the cooperatives, that you should have some digital literacy program, not just internally, but for your members as well. Then overall is really yung digital transformation management. How are we going to manage all of these changes? So it will really require roadmap, a clear timeline on when these cooperatives will have to transition themselves, because this does not happen by chance eh. Pwede kasing nasa plano lang siya, sinabi natin sa strat plan, okay, we wanted to optimize using technology. Pero kung hindi naman nakalatag yung clear timeline na yun, it just remains a plan. So very important then ma-establish ang different roles from the different departments. What's now the role of IT in this digitalization roadmap? What's the role of marketing? What's the role of finance? What's the role of HR? So siguro yun, partner, medyo madami-dami na siguro yun na ano ko, di ba? Yung digitalization transformation. First is yung digital leadership. Second is digital strategy. Number 3 is digital member relationship. 4 is digital product. 5, digital processes. 6 is social collaboration. 7, digital mindset. And number 8 is the digital transformation management. Yan. So it will help our members really that they will feel comfortable that if my co-op is really parang raising the bar to become to adapt to new times, then more or less I will feel safe that my money is also safe. And that means being relevant, na hindi tayo mawawala sa mapa. That's why we also need to adapt in terms of digital transformation.
Okay. Listening to you, partner, I can say that do not expect to return to the normal. What we can do is really move
the old normal.
Oh, the old normal. The digital platform or the road towards digitalization, it's not going away. It is staying, right?
Yes, it's here to stay.
It's here to stay. It totally changed the landmark of our information technology. Pagdating sa mga policies natin, IT policies natin, before, bawal ang Facebook, no? Sa offices. But if you do that now, you're bound to fail because of you're losing so much through communication. So we need to really come out with policies that will protect our confidentiality of the data and information. So right now there are data protection or data policy act that we have drafted by the government. But I think there's also a need for our government to draft legislative policies for us, for the cooperatives. For my next question, partner, no, this legislative support to the co-ops should be aligned with this digitalization transformation kasi it's a new culture for the co-ops and we need to protect our co-ops as well. So the banks have PDIC. Somehow ito yung madalas na hinahanap sa atin ng mga members, no? So what kind of protection scheme does the co-ops have? Can you share information on these aspects or in this area? Paano natin sasagutin yung mga members natin?
Oo, totoo yan, partner, that the common inquiry talaga for prospective members was, meron ba kayong PDIC sa co-op? What's your assurance that our money will be safe if you become a member to your co-op? Because banks really have this PDIC. And even banks were very, very, very fast in adapting to digitalization. And when we talk about protection, when we go towards digitalization, we need to ensure na it's not just the members' money that we are protecting, but we are also protecting our institution na hindi mawala. That our cooperative will really stay even for the next generations. It's true right now we do not have any PDIC for co-ops. It only applies to the Philippine banking system. And that is why NAPCO initiated this self-regulation program, which is the Stabilization Fund System. This is more or less the cooperative protection scheme that we have. But it's only for the members of NATCO. Ano ba ang kaibahan ng PDIC with the co-op protection scheme? Sa PDIC kasi, ang framework is the banks. The banks, clients ang depositors, clients ang kanilang borrowers. So if they need to protect the money of their clients, it is being covered by PDIC. But the bank can close. Kumbaga, for example, 500,000, you're assured that you will get back your 500,000 pag nagsarado ang bangko. That's the PDIC. That's an insurance framework. But the cooperative protection scheme or the stabilization fund system is different. Kasi ang intention natin dyan is hindi magsara ang co-op. Because it will be a systemic risk for us. If one co-op will fail, it will have a domino effect to the other cooperatives. Kasi same lang tayo ng apelyido di ba? Cooperative. Kumbaga yung name natin lahat may cooperative sa bandang huli. We wanted to protect the institution because we own the co-op. We do not want our co-op to fail. So when we protect our own house, when we protect our own co-op, it also means that we are protecting the money of our members. Hindi mawawala yon. And part of it, really, the very important component of it is how are we going to unify our risk management as a sector? Kasi wala tayong hindi tayo highly regulated. Hindi tayo regulated by BSP. For BSP, they have a lot of memorandum circulars. They have a lot of pronouncements. Meron naman tayo sa CDA. However, the implementation pa is hindi pa ganun ka-strict. Sa bangko kasi, if you don't comply with certain capital adequacy ratios or any other Basel ratios that they are monitoring, you're really forced to do something or else you will not be given license to operate. Sa atin kasi wala pa tayong ganun. We can still continue to operate unless there is an isolated case that there is a cease and desist order. But in terms of regulation, wala pa tayo sa level that we are being highly regulated. Kaya hindi tayo pwedeng mag-qualify doon sa PDIC. And because of the pandemic and the data that we have, CDA saw parang the relevance right now and the need right now really to come up with a protection scheme for the co-op sector this time. It's been a long while na pinag-usapan na yan na dapat meron din tayong parang PDIC. So CDA started talking with PDIC. Although doon sa pag-uusap nila, ang sabi ng PDIC, if you wanted to come up with the PDIC for your co-op, first you need to establish your stabilization fund. Yung risk management yung muna yung unahin ninyo. Kasi nga, all of us will be at risk kapag nag-push through tayo ng PDIC na hindi pa tayo nag-aayos. A lot of us sa co-ops natin hindi pa makapag-comply even with the basic paano mag-record ng portfolio at risk, paano mag-report ng portfolio at risk, paano mag-report ng delinquency. Even that basic information hindi pa makapag-comply ang lahat ng co-ops. Kaya yun yung isa sa program ni NATCO, itong Stabilization Fund System, wherein we are making our members aware of their risks para maayos na nila yung kanilang proseso at this early on. Because when it becomes a law, that it will be implemented to the entire country, at least NATCO members are already ready. Ang scheme niya kasi, the higher the risk, your risk rating, the higher the premium that you will have to pay if you wanted really to join the stabilization fund. So kung ganon, kailangan low risk ang rating ko. Kailangan ayusin ko ang proseso ko ngayon. Kailangan alam kong i-manage yung aking mga emerging risks sa ngayon para pagdating ng premium-based na yung fund, it will be much easier for me. It's because I am a low-risk entity rather than paying higher premium of being a critically risky na cooperative. So it's true that it's only NATCO who has this type of program among all other federations in the country. And we were very lucky because we have international partners like DGRV. DGRV is a German federation. Their stabilization fund system has been there in the 1940s, early as 1940s. So ganun na siya katagal. They're helping us out in formulating our roadmap on how are we going to transform ourselves doon talaga sa pinaka-konsepto ng stabilization fund. But what we're doing with NATCO right now is for our members na masanay silang i-evaluate, masanay silang i-inspect. And the inspection will really add value to them. It's because on a third-party point of view, they will be able to identify that these are our risks and we need to manage our risks, we need to respond to it. There is a classic example of a co-op that we have evaluated in 2018. Ang rating niya is nasa high risk siya. Oo. However, 2 years after, even dun sa kasagsagan ng pandemic, we were very surprised because when we did a second round of inspection, a lot of their indicators were escalated from high, naging moderate risk na lang siya. So it was a very good practice para talagang they did not ignore the risk that we were facing. They really had the help of our consultancy unit para mag-ayos sila. It was really their decision. Kasi nung nalaman nilang high risk kami, kailangan namin mag-ayos. So kailangan namin ng tulong ng federation on how are we going to change our processes. And that leadership mindset really led them now to become a moderate risk type of cooperatives. And eventually in the coming year, they will be low risk. Having said that, we're not just protecting our co-op, but we are protecting our members. It's a different thing when our member cooperatives will know na low risk ang co-op. Kung saan ako member, low risk ang co-op ko. So meaning safe ang pera ko. Yung ganong mindset kasi ayaw nating mag-increase ang kanilang fear. That co-ops is lang siya, mag-open and then later on magsasara because of bad governance. And that's what we wanted to protect our members from. Having very inefficient operational processes and very bad governance. So yun ang risk natin So pag naayos nila yun, then our members will feel safe. At the same time, our co-op really can be true to their mission that they wanted to uplift the lives of our members by adding value in terms of the delivery of their services. So yun yung naging project ni NATCO, naging program ni NATCO. That's why the Stabilization Fund concept was adopted.
What does it entails, partner, to get into this program? Ano ba yung mga kailangan? Baka medyo mataas ang babayaran namin as a co-op.
Oo. Sa ngayon, wala naman silang mataas na babayaran. They have nothing to lose if they want to be part of the Stabilization Fund System. Because right now, hindi naman pa sila magbabayad ng premium. They will just, magpupondo muna sila. Kumbaga, magsisave muna sila. So they have nothing to lose. Kasi yung kanilang ipi-place in na initial placement would form part really of their deposits to NATCO and it will only earn minimal interest. Kasi NATCO is just placing it into yung low risk na government securities and just a membership fee of 2,000. But they have a lot to gain. Why? Because they do not have to pay for the inspection fee. They do not have to pay for the risk-based evaluation. And it is very comprehensive in scope because our external auditors will only limit themselves in assessing the financial performance of the co-op. But for Stabilization Fund System, aside from the financial performance, they are being evaluated on So, can we mute muna para hindi Oo, sige. Okay. So to continue, we're not just doing risk evaluation on the quantitative side, yung financial performance, but we're also doing risk evaluation on the qualitative side. From the credit risk, strategic risk, governance risk, down to the compliance risk. So it's very comprehensive in scope. At again, wala kasing binabayaran ang co-op when we do risk-based evaluation. And it's more of a return service of the federation. Kasi co-ops are remitting, as members of the federation, they are remitting their CTF to us. And it is a form of return service when we do risk evaluation to these co-ops. We also have to get their consent kung gusto talaga nilang magpa-evaluate. If their intention is really to level up, to raise the bar of their operations, then they're very open to risk-based evaluation. Wala silang babayaran. However, we are very particular with the confidentiality of their data. Kaya nagpapapirma kami ng Stabilization Fund Agreement. Nasa agreement kasi that states that they will share their records to us, but the records or the data will just stay within the group. Dito lang talaga sa Stabilization Fund Group. It does not go to the other groups or units of NATCO. Kung gusto man i-share sa ibang unit, we need to have the confirmation or the parang ano talaga, hihingi muna kami ng permiso sa co-op na i-share namin ng data nila with the other groups. So it's more of an advantage really. If you talk about cost and benefit, wala kasi silang cost eh. Wala kasi silang babayaran ng mga fees except for the membership fee of 2,000. Yung placement naman nila is in a form of deposit. Parang pondo na nila yon in preparation when it becomes premium based. And even the gist of which is the risk-based evaluation, wala silang babayaran. How much are we paying for our external auditors? Ano din, medyo costly din yan siya. But the evaluation that we are doing with NATCO, particularly the Stabilization Fund System, there is no cost to that. So it's more of a benefit for them rather than a cost.
Thank you, partner. Those are very insightful, no? And we can also benchmark with other cooperatives, di ba? We'll be provided with data, then we can compare ourselves, our performance with other cooperatives. Of course, without disclosing yung mga information na we wanted to withhold para sa ating cooperative. Okay, so as much as I want to ask more questions, let us open the floor for our participants, especially those who are joining us in this Zoom. If you have any question related to our topic today on how we can actually assure the stability of our cooperatives, you may use the chat box or you may raise your hands, no, dito sa ating reaction button. You simply click on the raise hand and then we'll call on you so that you can unmute your microphones. Okay? And let's see. Those who are asking questions sa ating FB group, later maybe we'll be trying to entertain a few of it, no? Sa ating nakashare na FB Live. We'll check if there are some questions or comments in our live post. Okay? So mukhang wala namang mga questions. This is your opportunity to validate, no, or to ask few questions related to your performance, like what with what our partner Sharon mentioned earlier, no? Sabi niya nga, the top 3 na mga challenges ng mga co-ops natin during pandemic was kasama na dyan yung delinquency, right? No? Siguro maraming mga questions about delinquency. And then the financial stability ng ating co-ops, one of the challenges, and yung transformation on going into digitalization. So you might want some idea on how you can address these challenges. Let's wait for a few minutes.
At this point then, partner, we also would like siguro to commend our cooperatives who were very fast really in terms of responding. Yung nag-change talaga sila ng proseso because of the pandemic. And these co-ops prove talaga na hindi sa gaano kakalaki. Sabi nga ni Charles Darwin, it is not the strongest that survives. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. Yung 24% na sinabi ko kanina na co-ops who earned more than 2019, those were examples of co-ops who were very fast in terms of responding. Meron silang ginawang mga policy release kasi hindi nga nag-a-apply na yung policy nila nung pre-pandemic time. So this is a realization as well that we need to be very timely in terms of our decision making. Parang mahirap ngayon yung very late tayong magresponde, lalong-lalo na when we talk about change management, changing things on how we manage our undertakings in the co-op. So sila yung nakitaan namin na napakabilis talaga nilang nag-respond. Din sila, nag-revise sila ng policy, nag-realign sila na ng kanilang strategic plan, and gradually they were having digital products. Kasi nakita natin sa mga FB posts nila, di ba, nagsustock din tayo ng mga accounts ng ng co-ops. Nakikita natin doon na, di ba, sila, they are now promoting, they are doing marketing via social media. And it was very, very effective. So it's also something of a lesson learned for the other co-ops na medyo mabagal yung kanilang pag-shift. Kumbaga, nasa punto pa silang, are we going to jump into that or are we going to stay to where we are? Kasi may certain inflection point tayo eh. It's a decision wherein, do I need to change path? If I change path, I will take the risk, but it must be a risk who's have more benefits rather than it will cause me to fail. So the 24% of those co-ops, parang nasa point sila na ganun, that they made the decision that they will go into this path in order for them to continue to survive. So it's the same message that we at the federation level would want our member co-ops to think at this point. Kung hindi pa man sila nakapag-realign ng kanilang strategic plan, it's their time now to revisit their strategic plan and try to come up with yung opportunities and threats analysis. Kung mag-a-apply ba sa ngayon yung kanilang processes, are they going to be able to take advantage of the opportunity? Will their processes be able to counteract the threats? Kasi they need to be very proactive right now in terms of how they run the co-op operations.
Yes.
Para medyo tahimik ngayon ang ating partner. O baka nahihiya lang sila.
Nahihiya lang siguro nila. But we have here a question. It was sent to me privately, partner. Medyo nahihiya mag-ask ng question ng ng public eh. No? So I'll just read the question. Okay, sa trajectory po ng ating co-op sector, mga anong year po na magiging premium na po ang pagsali sa stabilization system at di na siya as deposit?
Frankly speaking, hindi ko masasabi ang timeline because it will depend on your readiness. Sa ngayon kasi, frankly speaking, of those co-ops that we have evaluated, we have done more than 100 evaluations, risk-based evaluations. Most of these co-ops are not ready to pay higher premium kasi most of them is either nasa critical risk or nasa high risk level. And pag nasa critical and high risk level ka, mas mahal ang babayaran mo. The reason why we have this program with NATCO because we wanted you to be aware that right now we go back to the basic of continue to have that financial discipline, yung controlling our delinquency, having provisions, and having a very good operational business processes. Mag-aayos talaga tayo. Hindi pwedeng kung ano yung proseso natin dati when we were a small and medium-sized co-op, it would be the same if you're going to be a billionaire. Hindi. We need to have certain changes. Baka ang timeline will be 5 years. Hopefully that within that 5 years, co-ops starting right now, starting this year, would be able to come up with mechanisms in their plans. Some mechanisms kung saan sila dapat ayusin yung mga proseso na dapat ayusin. Saan dapat i-plancha yung mga financial indicators na kailangan nilang pagtuunan ng pansin. Particularly the delinquency rate and then our net institutional capital and our solvency. Based on the data that we have, it will took a while for co-ops to go to that level of reaching to the standard. But the most important thing is if we are going to see progress. And the readiness of the co-ops to be inspected. Yes, that's the factor. Kasi pwede namang maging maging legislation siya that you will have a co-op protection scheme, but it will also be part of the legislation that you will really be subject to inspection, either by CDA or by a partner federation. And ano din pala partner, because of this one, CDA's project for this year is that they will going to partner with federations to do inspection para lang masimulan yung to keep the ball rolling doon sa inspection na side when we go into the co-op protection scheme na premium base na. Very important factor kasi talaga an inspection and supervision. Just like what BSP is doing. PDIC is the insurance component, but it's the BSP who is on the regulation component who has that supervision and inspection division. May direct message ako dito, partner. Yes. From BCCI, sa Bontoc, si Ma'am Luz Biminda. Want to clarify if Stabilization Fund will be subject for devaluation. Right now po, with NATCO Stabilization Fund, kasi it is a placement. It is a deposit. So, hindi naman siya magde-devalue. But if it becomes a premium base, then more or less, there is some kind of, yung pag-insurance ka, meron kang actuarial. So that will be subject to mga actuarials. But as I've said, ano na siya, parang looking forward for the management of that fund. Ang priority natin sa ngayon is how are we going to be able to manage our risk. That's the most important thing. That is what is in our control. How we're going to manage our risk, because when it comes to premium base later on, it will be more an external factor basing on the law and basing on the framework. But sa ngayon, ang pwede nating simulan is we need to manage really our internal business processes in order for us to have a very good financial performance. We have a very good solvency ratio and very good net institutional capital ratio.
Partner, I have here a question. Actually, these are two questions, but let me go back to your earlier answer about, or yung shinare mo na we are going to work with CDA. Ang question is, ibang-iba ba ang mga standards under the Stabilization Fund Systems? Maybe she's referring to the criteria at yung sa CDA requirements.
Hindi siya magkaiba. It's complementary. Kasi we based our tool doon din sa PAR. 'Di ba yung performance audit report ng CDA, which composed of two, yung governance and management and the steps. The steps is more on the computation. Yung governance and management, yun yung sa the qualitative side. We based our tool with that. Mas pinalawak lang namin based on our experiences. Because we've been working from the co-op sector for quite some time, and we also have some learnings from our international partners. So parang we just adapted it. We came up with a tool that is not contrary to CDA standards. Yes, so these are just complementary standards that we are talking about. The measurements that or the metrics that we are using with NATCO Stabilization Fund System.
Yan. Complementary naman po pala. So, wag na kayong mag-hesitate na madadagdagan yung inspection requirements, no? If it's complementary, hindi naman ganun kalaki yung magiging trabaho on our part, no? So, we're doing it already. Now,
actually, partner,
yes.
malaki siyang trabaho kung talaga ang co-op na yan is kailangang mag-ayos. Oo. Doon makikita kung marami silang mga risk issues. Kung early as now, hindi sila nag-ayos. Pero if they have started really complying, even with the very basic standard set by CDA, mas mabilis na yon. Pero kung hindi sila nakapag-comply as early as now, even yung sabi ko kanina, pag-report lang ng delinquency, hindi siya portfolio at risk, ang ginamit nila is by maturity, yun, red flag na yun. So talagang marami silang aayusin because it has a lot of impact. But reporting delinquency at portfolio at risk was really a very basic standard even before. So yun, maraming aayusin kung ang co-op natin sa ngayon is hindi talaga sumunod doon sa basic standards set by CDA even before.
Yes, partner. And I think your recommendations then on how you can work on those non-compliance will also help them, no, to find an easier
Yes,
approach
partner.
dealing with their non-compliance. Okay, partner. The next question is,
Yes.
regardless of the size of the co-op, ba, is it advisable to be inspected by Stabilization Fund or be inside this system, the Stab Fund system, kahit na micro ka or large ka, regardless of the size, welcome ba na maging part of this Stabilization Fund system?
Yes, partner. Oo, we do not kasi wala tayong mga preferred na tinatawag nating we do not discriminate anybody. All sizes of co-ops are really we are really inviting them kasi nga ang ating intention is how are we going to help them manage the risk. Nakita din namin, partner, that we have inspected mga small and medium-sized co-ops. Sila yung mas hirap in terms of their processes kasi ito yung mga nagmumultitask, yung bang nako-compromise ang controls. Oo. So, iba din naman ang risk when you are getting bigger. Like for a billionaire co-op, iba ang risk nila. But dumaan din sila ng mga problema when they were the small and medium. Kumbaga, nakita namin ngayon that there were ladderized form of complying eh. Pag small and medium ka pala, ito pala ang naging common risk issue. Pag na-fix nila, mas mabilis ang growth nila. And when they become a billionaire co-op, mas complex na siya in terms of governance decision making. Particularly nga ito, towards yung ating digitalization. Because ang sakop din nila, mas marami na silang members. So, mas marami ng expectations. When you started as small and medium, medyo konti pa ang members. Marami kang issue, pero mas mabilis mo siyang ma-resolve. Lalo na if the management and board of directors will really have that willpower to change. Kung ba, open sila to criticisms na kung pag nag-finding ka kasi, di ba, parang, ano ba yan, pinupuna naman lahat ng mga mali namin. But if you're open to that, di ba, na pinupuna kasi yung mali, kasi po, this will lead to certain risk. Kasi hindi nyo in-address yan, our fear of you losing your co-op will be very eminent. So yun naman yung pinaka-objective natin. It's not really pointing their mistakes, but telling them that because of these mistakes, this will be the risk. And if you're not going to respond to it, the heavier your problem will be. Kasi you will be answerable to the General Assembly na bakit hindi maayos ang pagpapatakbo ng co-op. So there is no discrimination, partner, as to the size of the co-op that will join the Stabilization Fund System.
Yes. Thank you, partner. No, that will actually answer the next questions that I get. That after the assessment and then after finding out your ratings, there will be inputs coming from your group on how they can improve on their rating.
Based on the recommendations, partner, yes. We will give some recommendations. However, we do not have that power to impose na kailangan yung gawin yung recommendation na yan. It's still their decision. We are there to help assess the risk of the co-op. We will give recommendation. Pero kung paano sila mag-change, they can ask really the other units of the federation, particularly our consultancy unit. Kasi yung consultancy unit natin yung mag-guide sa kanila kung paano nila babaguhin yung kanilang proseso. It's easier for us to say we recommend to do this one. Pero transitioning yourselves to be into that level is a different story because it will mean might be changing organizational structure and all your functions. So it's very helpful as well that the other units or groups within NATCO complements with what we are doing. Particularly the consultancy unit because sila po yung mag-guide sa co-ops doon sa pagbabago, yung sa transformation journey nila. It will not be our role kasi our role is on the audit side, on the risk evaluation side, we will be giving our recommendations, but guiding them from day one until they will be able to comply will be the role now of the education, training, and consultancy group.
Okay, partner. Partner, let's say I'm a
Mm.
manager and I want this system, this program to be adapted by our cooperative. However, I'm having some challenges presenting it to the board of directors. So, paano mo kami matutulungan? How can we get into
Ah,
the program?
Wala naman problema, partner, because we can explain to the board of directors what this stabilization fund system is all about. Sa simula kasi medyo mahirap siyang intindihin. Ano ba yan? Because parang ano nila is more on the fund eh. It's not really on the supervision side, in which on the monitoring or the risk evaluation side. So kung ganun, they can always communicate with us so that kung willing naman ang management, pero medyo mahirapan silang magpa-approve sa board, then we will do the presentation to the board of directors to make them understand of what's this stabilization fund system is all about.
Thank you, partner. That's a very good assurance for us that we can really get the help of our federation. So, if you need us, no, to convince your officers, just give us a call, no? We're always open for your needs sa ating mga member cooperatives. And those who are not yet members of our federation, I suggest you get in touch with our MRO. Okay? So,
Oo.
para maging official lang na yung mga services natin, although we try to give services as well to some co-ops, lalo na sa education and training natin, but it is best if you become a member of the network para you can also network or communicate with other cooperatives. You can benchmark with the other cooperatives. Okay, so as of the moment, I think medyo meron pang isang humabol na question here. Ayan. If ever we experience serious challenges, tulungan po ba kami ng Stabilization Fund to recover? Parang na-answer ni Sharon, but again, Sharon, baka kailangan lang nating expound on this part. How can we help them recover?
In terms of recovering, yeah, sa ngayon kasi nga deposit pa lang yung scheme natin. Yeah. So what we do is we monitor their financial performance of the co-op regularly. And then we give them certain recommendations. Sometimes we also endorse them to our consultancy group para tulungan silang mag-ayos. If they need funding, then we also endorse them to our treasury group kung kaya naman nilang mag-loan muna for a certain period. But the long-term concept talaga ng cooperative protection scheme is that when you are able to pass certain standards, tapos biglang may nangyari sa co-op ninyo, then the stabilization fund itself will put in some capitalization to that co-op. Pag nag-premium base na tayo. Kaya nga may risk evaluation eh. But there are certain conditions to do that. You qualified for that already if during the past years you were able also to comply with certain standards set by the regulation or particularly set by CDA. Kumbaga, yung isolated case na yun pag nag-fail ka, it is either dahil sa pandemic and all. Pero sana hindi dahil bad governance. Yan, yun ang iniwasan natin nag-fail siya dahil bad governance o nag-fail siya dahil of fraudulent activities. That is the reason why we have risk evaluation to prevent things like that to happen. Para hindi umabot sa punto na we need certain assistance. Kasi parang naging, din natin on our side we were also the reason on why it ended up na ganito tayo. Kasi hindi tayo nag-set up ng very good internal control mechanism or even a very good governance framework.
Thank you, partner. Thank you very much for your inputs. Ayan. So, ayan, nag-comment din ang ating member of the consultancy team. Sabi niya, we at the consultancy unit are ready to help you. Ayan, you can just message them as well. If you need help pagdating sa pag-aayos, they are always open for your questions or assistance needed. And partner, there's a lot of thank you messages sa ating FB page. And even sa ating mga participants here, they said it's very informative yung ating talk right now. And we are also joined by our CEO. We would like to acknowledge the presence of Ma'am Ibing for joining us in our first talk, ating co-op lounge talk today. We will be featuring other services of NATCO network in the very near future, maybe in between of the free webinars. And we are also advised that Ma'am Lenny is watching. That's from ACU. So ACU is actually helping us with the access branding, no? Sa kanila tayo naka-subscribe for the access branding. Of course, with the help of
Actually then partner, yeah. Actually then, ACU was the one who introduced the Stabilization Fund concept to the Philippines. Sila yun talagang nagdala nung konsepto sa atin dito. And then yun na, parang yun ang naging kick-off point natin on why we are here right now. The year 2022, we are still here and trying to come up with risk management mechanisms for our co-op. So we would like to thank ACU for that.
Thank you.
And then part din ng ACU kasi ng Stabilization Fund Committee. Yes.
So it's an international assistance that we get from ACU as well, no? Yung mga technical
business solutions
and solutions,
yes.
business solutions, we get it from ACU as well. Ayan. Ma'am Ibing said Ma'am Lenny is watching through our FB Live. Ayan. Ma'am Ibing, would you like to say hi sa ating mga participants today, not only here in Zoom and FB?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations sa ating debut ba ito ng Co-op Lounge with the two powerful ladies of the NATCO Federation, Miss Rose and Miss Sharon. They look so fresh despite the very hectic schedules. Thank you for this new approach in working together with the primaries. And I'd like to share to the audience that we're very happy. The Stabilization Fund is gaining momentum. Last year, we only had how many members, Sharon? 3 for the year, last year? And
we only
right
had
now,
3 Right
yes,
now,
and
we
as
have
of February,
4.
Yeah, so I
We
think
have 4
that's a
new
sign
members.
that,
Yes.
that more cooperatives will be joining us. We hope to have you here, big or small. I think even the small ones should need this because then you're guided right at the very start. Then you're ready when you grow big. No, you don't have to wait to be a billionaire to be part of the Stabilization Fund System. So congratulations. Thank you also to the cooperatives.
Thank you, Mami Bing. Ayan, you heard the voice of our CEO in NATCO Network. And partner, so siguro with that, we're almost near our closing time. We promised up to 11:30. So any last few words or any words of wisdom for our cooperatives who participated in our co-op lunch this morning? Yan.
Thank you, partner, for being, I am very privileged to being your first guest sa ating the co-op lunch kasi ito yung ano natin pasimula. This is our very first co-op lunch and I'm very honored to be your first guest. It's one way also of sharing important information to our members, particularly on what we call the Cooperative Protection Scheme. So again, it's because of the pandemic, it made us aware of what's happening, and it's also a lesson for us to really respond to that. So I would like to repeat the words of Charles Darwin: it is not the strongest that survives, it is the one that's most adaptable to change. So as mentioned earlier, you need to be very conscious right now in terms of your digitalization journey. Because if we wanted to be relevant, if we wanted to be responsive to the needs of our members, we already have to decide to go to that path. So again, thank you so much, partner. On behalf of NATCO Stabilization Fund System, I am Sharon Maridi saying maayong buntag sa atong tanan.
And this is Rose Gob, your host for today. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Paalam.
Good morning, everyone. That concludes our first episode ng ating Cop Lounge. And syempre, hindi lang ito yung una at huli. Syempre, we wanted pa na mas marami pa tayong mai-release na ganito. Pero for now, syempre, kailangan natin ng photo op sa ating first Cop Lounge episode. Sige po, kindly, we are requesting everyone to open your cameras para po sa ating group picture. Para ma-picture naman tayo. Sige, stop share ko muna. Ayan, may mga message, Ma'am Rose, na nandito sa ating mga chat group, Ma'am Sharon. Nagpapasalamat po doon sa ating event ngayon. Ayan, sige. Makikisuyo ako sa atin sa head office, kina Miss Shana. Meron tayong 3-page lang naman. Ayan, sige. Thank you po sa mga mag-chat-chat. Post mo ng ating chat para hindi matakpan yung nasa bandang ibaba po ng ating chat. Sige po. Unang page, Miss Shana. Okay na po. Okay, smile po sa camera kahit nakamas. 1, 2, 3. Ayan, smile. Next po, baka nasa second page po kayo. 1, 2, 3, smile. Ayan, sa third page mga picture. Sige, third page pa rin. Ayan, 1, 2, 3, smile. Ayan, baka napagod na kayo sa kakasmile. Maraming pong salamat, Ma'am Sharon, Ma'am Rose, sa ating pinakauna. Siyempre, kay Ma'am Iding, kay Ma'am Bing Cabal sa suporta kay Ma'am Lenny, marami pong salamat. Siyempre, maraming salamat sa suporta ng ating mga cooperators, sa mga leaders po natin. Again, Ma'am Sharon, pahabol lang, baka they want to reach you, saan po sila pwede mag-email, Ma'am Rose, or mag-contact para po sa mga next steps po nila? Meron po ba kayong pwede ibigay na contact details?
Yes, Chin. Riffy is our Stabilization Fund Specialist. You may communicate with her. Riffy can leave her contact details sa ating chat box. Yes. So kung gusto nyo pong magpa-present sa inyong management or even to your board of directors about the Stabilization Fund System concept of NATCO, please feel free to communicate with us.
Salamat, Ma'am Siya. May pa-back up pa ng present sa inyong mga board. Ayan.
Yes,
Thank you.
oo.
Napaka-holistic ng approach. Salamat po, salamat po. Ayan po, i-chat po ni Ms. Rippy sa ating chat box. Makikopy na lang po ang binigay niyang contact details if you want to reach for our Stabilization Fund System group. Ayan. Siyempre, we want to hear from you. Ito po yung ating survey. Kindly scan this code. Gamit po ang inyong mga smartphone or pwede rin natin i-type sa ating chat box yung link po ng ating survey para malaman po namin ano ba yung next topic na you want to discuss sa ating Co-op Lounge or mga training needs pa na kailangan po ninyo sa mga susunod. Please don't forget po na i-scan again yung ating itong ating code or ita-type po sa ating chat box yung link ng ating survey para po. Please sagutan niyo po yung mga survey natin para po yung mga topics natin may mas yung relevant doon sa pangangailangan po ng bawat isa sa atin. Okay? Sige po, kung na-scan nyo na sa ating KRCT, copy-paste na lang po sa ating chat box yung ating survey. Ayan. Next po, at this point, we want to invite everyone po sa ating strategic Human Resource Management Program sa April 4 to 8 po ito. Ang deadline ng ating registration is February 28 po. Strategic Human Resource Management Program para sa inyong mga HR, para mga personnel na nag-handle po ng inyong human resource. Ayan. We invite everyone for our Strategic Human Resource Management Program. Sa mga hindi po nakaabot sa ating Co-op Batch 11, sa mga nakatopan po, malapit na po mag-open ang ating Cooperative Leadership and Management Program Batch 12. So baka this week, i-release na po namin ang ating invitation registration for our Batch 12. Join po kayo sa next batch natin. Ayan, sa mga hindi nakaabot sa Batch 11. Batch 12 na po. Sige. And then, yun po, please don't forget to visit our official Facebook page na NATCO Knowledge Resource Center. Yan po yung ating Facebook page. Paki-click naman po ang like ninyo. Paki-like naman ang ating page para masaya naman tayo. Ayan. And yun po, maraming pong salamat sa bawat isa, sa inyo pong time, sa inyong pagdalo. Pag hindi pa po kayo naka-register sa ating ating event, kindly click din po the registration para meron naman po kami information ninyo. Maraming pong salamat and good afternoon po. Happy lunch!
Just your feet.